Everyone, welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call our regular meeting of our Town Planning Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, December 2nd, 2024 at 6:32 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Planning Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission with us here tonight are Ben Cherry, Kathy Hunter, Yoni Zamir, Jeff Kennedy, and Aaron Hoffman. Thank you all for being here. Thank you as well to Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. Also nice to see our first selectman, Mika Cardozo. Nice to have you all here. Hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving holiday. Our agenda tonight has been available on the town website. On tonight's agenda, we have a public hearing on an amendment of our opportunity housing zoning regulations brought forward by Attorney John Nuff on behalf of Angelo Malisi. In our new business, we have the receipt of an application from Toll Northeast 5 Corp. for 1772 Litchfield Turnpike for a special exception permit for excavation, removal, fill, grading, etc., pursuant to Section 3.3N of our regulations. In our work session, we may have a discussion with Derek Waskowitz regarding the timeline of the excavation work at 110 Luciani Street. And then I believe we have a few other items on our work session, including a status update on our work on the plan of conservation and development, among other topics. So first up on our agenda is the public hearing on the amendment of our opportunity housing zoning regulations. Attorney Nuff, would you like to come forward, introduce yourself? Chris, does he have to sign in, or?
I gave him a sheet, he can sign it.
Wonderful. And then,
Mr. Chairman, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut, here tonight on behalf of Andrew Malisi, who's the contract purchaser of 804 Fountain Street. And I would share your wishes for that you all had a nice Thanksgiving, and we appreciate you all being here. Maybe it's good to be out of the house after 4 days off. So you'll recall that we had some really productive conversations, and I say this with all sincerity, deeply productive and thoughtful conversations about modifying the opportunity housing regulations. And so, you know, as a result of those conversations, we submitted the regulation amendment application in keeping with what those discussions were, particularly with regard to how to address the affordability component to that. And then hopefully you received in your packets that Chris sent out a week or so ago, just a summary of what's included in your POCD and in your affordable housing plan. You know, I know that, you know, as I said, we've had very productive informal conversations, but we are creating our new record, and so I didn't want to be redundant to the conversations that we had the previous two meetings. But on the other hand, I do want to get into the record the supporting documents or the supporting statements in your POCD and the affordable housing plan, and so that was the primary reason for submitting that. So if anyone needs a copy of the proposed regulation amendment or the memo, I have extras here to share with you. If not, you know, I'm just going to go through them fairly quickly. So you recall,
I would actually take a copy of the proposed regulation.
okay.
Because mine is in a pile that got sorted.
Yes, I have mine in a minute, it's a little small.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if anyone needs the memo, I have that as well. So you recall when we were here, I actually think it was technically the summertime, maybe in September, we talked about how your regulations have two primary barriers. One is just the bulk requirements, and that is currently your regulations for residents, in fact all the zones for opportunity housing is a maximum density of 15 units per acre. But then if you look at the Residence A zone and figure out, okay, so how can you put 15 units per acre given the 22.5% maximum lot coverage and the 2.5 story maximum heights? And we had two engineers look at that, and they both said, no, you can't do that. And so that was the first barrier, and that's the first collection of changes that we want to make is to modify the maximum lot coverage as well as the maximum number of stories. So if you could do that, then the other barrier is frankly a financial one, and the fact that you haven't had anyone make an application under your affordable housing or your opportunity housing regulations is a testament to that, and that is you need slightly greater density to go up to 18 units per acre, and then a modification, I think it's a modest modification of the affordability requirements, because currently your regulations require 20% split between 60% and 80%. So 10% have to be at 60%, 10 at 80%. And that is, in my work throughout the states, that's pretty aggressive, and frankly, more aggressive than I've seen in most other places. And so after our discussion, we proposed to make it 18 units per acre, and then reducing affordability to 12%, half at 60, half at 80, and then at the commission's request, we added an alternative of 20% at 80%, which is not uncommon, and in fact, that's what the incentive housing statutes provide for. And so that is just a very quick summary of the changes that we propose to make. And then just looking at my memo that I've submitted, it's actually, so those of us who do this for a living, we talk about multifamily and affordable components and what it does for communities, and all of which is true, but when reading through your POCD and your affordable housing plan, you literally hit upon every one of those touch points. So housing costs are very, very high. So you have a high barrier to entry. There's a really fascinating article in the Wall Street Journal recently about how the interest rates are really locking everybody into place. So people my age, I can't leave my house, even if I want to, because if I move to a smaller house, I'm going to be paying the same or more greater interest or greater mortgage payment because the interest rates are higher. So you have like this confluence of factors that people in their 30s, they literally cannot buy a house, so they're forced into renting. So this will create an opportunity for more affordable housing, not just affordable, in terms of being restricted in terms of the rent we can charge, but just, a lowercase a affordable is going to be less expensive than paying a mortgage on a large single-family home. Your affordable housing plan, and so your POCD is from 2015. It's not to say it's out of date, because I think everything in there that relates to this is still accurate. There's very few housing choices. That continues to be true. But your affordable housing plan is of a more recent vintage. And it provides that Woodbridge has seen slight population decreases and is projected to continue to experience population decreases over the next two decades. 66% of renters, 27% of homeowners are considered cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. This is an opportunity to keep current residents in town, particularly seniors. We all know that we would, people who may want to downsize, obviously not get rid of the cost and the burden of maintaining a single family home, but nevertheless they want to stay in the community where their friends and maybe their children and their faith community is, and the place where they're comfortable, even though maybe they have an apartment in Florida, or maybe they visit their kids in North Carolina, but it's an opportunity for them to downsize. It does provide an opportunity for economic development. As I think Justin mentioned, his colleague Don Pullen has said, residential units are where jobs go at night to go to sleep. And that's 100% true, and we certainly think that that's an opportunity here. As talking to my client beforehand, I had the great pleasure of representing Yale New Haven Hospital on the new neuroscience center at Yale New Haven Hospital. They're looking at hundreds of new employees there. All the people at the service, that brand new, 10-story hospital tower, well, those folks are going to need a place to live. And these are be wonderful people to have in your, or frankly, any other community. Again, your affordable housing plan is about housing options, seniors who'd like to remain in Woodbridge, diversify your housing stock, increase the diversity of residents, And so then the strategy in your affordable housing plan is exactly what we're trying to do this evening. Review existing zoning to remove barriers to housing production, increase housing production. This recommendation encourages the commission to review existing zoning districts and regulations to reduce barriers to housing production, such as use restrictions, dimensional requirements, open space requirements, height restrictions, lot area and lot area per dwelling unit requirements, and parking. Look for opportunities to create flexible zoning regulations in areas where the municipality wants to encourage housing production. And we have a footnote that, in fact, this site that my client has under contract is one of those sites that was noted in the affordable housing plan. So, as I said, we had some really productive conversations. I don't want to be redundant. I want to give all of you an opportunity to speak and, hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you so much, Attorney Nuff, and to members of our Planning and Zoning Commission. Do you have any questions of the applicant?
Generally speaking, what are market rates, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms for a development like this around? Is there a would you know of a min-max?
I can certainly ask my client what he's saying. Angela, do you want to?
Yes, we're if we're pulling from New Haven, you get up to mid-3s for 2 bedrooms, high 2s for 2 bedrooms. We will be below that.
So 2 bedrooms plus.
2 bedrooms for New Haven, for that market.
I'm sorry, you said 2 bedrooms twice. You said it.
2 bedrooms, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry,
One
three.
bedroom is in the high 2,000,
That's it.
2,900.
And the 3s are
3,500. Some of the newer buildings in New Haven are even more. So I think we'll be below that, somewhere between here and what Shelton is. We're taking the data from like CoStar, Apartments.com, and looking at what the averages are.
Could you just please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Angelo Malisi?
Paul, any follow-up
I just have
questions?
one more question. On the plan that you handed out, is there any recreational kind of land here for, if there are children? Is there grass or playground or anything contemplated?
Yeah, so we're currently working on the site plans. So we're figuring out drainage. We hired our traffic engineer. We're going to be doing a landscape plan. So, some of those items are yet to come, but I'm certainly, we can give that consideration.
Other questions from members of the commission?
Sure, I have a question. So you'd mentioned that the ratio of 15 maximum density percentage and the 30% maximum, the 22% maximum lot coverage, and the stories of 2.5 didn't work well when you went to an engineer and the engineer said that.
Correct.
Do you have any, can you explain that to me a little bit better so I understand what those,
Right,
what that
right.
means?
So-
because, hold on, so is that like a financial consideration?
No.
Or, so like help me to understand how that would work.
This
Thank you.
This is pure engineering. So, Rostiza, who is actually doing the civil planning for us, as well as another engineer who you all know, John Paul Garcia, looked at this as well. And putting costs completely aside is, can you fit 15 units an acre with the limitation 22.5% of maximum lot coverage, that's total impervious, so that's building and parking, but only go 2.5 stories up. So you could maybe get 15 units per acre at 22.5% total lot coverage if you can go up 5 stories. I don't know, I haven't done the math.
Okay,
So it's simply,
So it's not possible.
it's not, they both looked at it, and on this site in particular, but it's not possible. Part of it is the driveway of how you have to get in. I forget the exact numbers of how much we were over on impervious, but they both looked at this parcel in particular and could not do it. Is there another parcel where could be? Frankly, I don't know.
I appreciate you saying that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention that our town planner is Justin LaFountain is also here. If there's any, if you feel there's anything you want to input from him.
Thank you, though I don't know if procedurally we can. It's an applicant with a proposal. I don't know.
No, and I mean, we certainly have no objection if Justin wants to speak, of course.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions, though, first to the applicant.
I just want to get back to this
Yeah,
earlier question.
perhaps maybe we can move a chair up and so you can be closer to the microphone for folks. Thank you.
Back to the cost of the apartment. So for instance, a studio would be between $1,750 and $1,950 a month. One bedroom would be average $2,350, and two bedrooms, depending on the size, around $2,950. To clarify that.
That's New Haven County you're talking about?
That's for this project.
Okay, thank you.
When you get into New Haven, it's probably across the board $500 plus more for each one of those.
Other questions from members of the commission? So, seeing none, do we have any questions of our town planning consultant? Recognizing, well, actually, would you like to have any closing statement or thing you'd like to wrap up?
I mean, frankly, because this has been such a collegial approach so far, we do want to get your thoughts. You know, we've asked for an architect to do just a quick sketch of what the building may look like. And there is a provision in your regulations that says any building within a multifamily opportunity housing development should not have a flat roof, but may have a gable, hip, or gambrel roof. It's hard to do 4 stories and then obviously have one of those types of roofs. So if it's okay, and I know that we're getting further afield from the actual application before you, if you're amenable, we'd like to show you, sort of what we're thinking of, get your reaction, so then we actually hopefully the regulation amendment gets approved and we come back to the special permit, it could save all of us some time to get your input on this building design. And if necessary, we may have to tweak that provision, or maybe we come back with a different design. So if you're okay with us showing it to you, we'd like to do that. If you think that, that's improper, then, we'll.
So, I don't
And
think
we're
it's
totally open for suggestions.
Yeah, just an artist rendering, is that in the spirit of what it might potentially look like?
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. I mean, frankly, Angelo and I are not entirely in love with the large cornices, but we do need to figure out. I don't want to bring this into you and then someone say, "But wait a minute, this isn't a hip or gambrel or gable roof," and so if we need to modify that regulation, then we want to be able to do that as well. So I'm just going to let you react and not try to.
John, you've got an
Easy
update behind
behind
you
you.
if you want to.
The term might be easier.
So John, how many units are in that particular building that we're looking at?
This would be our building. That's
96.
it's consistent with the plan that was attached to the memo.
So there's 96 96 units in that particular
Correct.
one.
20 studios, 22s, and 56 ones.
And do we have that written down somewhere yet? Or is it-
That's
Sure
not
if
part
you
of
do.
this application.
Parking under for 56 cars and another 130 around the perimeter.
Okay.
And there will be a pretty large patio in the back of the first floor. When you walk into the entrance, it's going to be an open lobby, 2 stories. When you get up to the second, there's going to be a large common room, fitness room, and outside of there will be a large patio with grills and amenities. They talked about like a dog walk. There's plenty of land. We're going to make a trail out to the left for that reason, for that.
Okay, thank you.
And we're hoping with the site, as you enter the property, We need to put a retention pond in, and we're hoping to have a fountain there and call it Fountain Ridge. That's the idea. So when you come in, you'll look up the hill, see the property, the fountain, and the retention pond, which would be way down over here.
I'd love to see some 3-bedrooms.
Really?
I would, yeah. There's a sore lack of 3-bedroom,
Yeah, there's not very many.
you know. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking 20, 20, and 56. Is that what I heard you say?
20, 20, and 56, no threes. The threes would probably have to be in that tower right there. They're much larger.
Well, if you'd consider it, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
I gotta tell you, it's an enlightened approach, because most towns are saying, we don't want 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that.
No.
People got to live
You know, for
somewhere
the
too. Yeah,
obvious reason.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
The
it's,
cost to it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, it's, a lot of towns don't want it because they think, well, that could drive school-age children.
Right.
Yeah, no, I want to see children running around.
Yeah, I agree with Yoni on that as well.
Well,
I
adding some
understand
threes.
I understand the difficulty in putting in 3 bedrooms, just in terms of the complication of the floor plan, but from my perspective.
Well, what happens to be, see, originally I was
Yeah.
gonna do the, like common fitness
Yeah.
going up, and I changed it and did it in the back of here.
Yeah.
So now these are gonna be really big
Mhm.
apartments, so we
Yeah.
can make those three bedrooms actually.
And the other thing I've seen is 2 plus an office, which becomes
Yeah.
under a certain.
Like a den or, yeah,
Yeah.
little office, yep.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
a legal bedroom, but it's been good.
Right,
for-
typically the only difference is there's no closet in a den.
Exactly.
Right. And then if you put a den, they'll say, well, you're putting a bedroom in, you're just not calling it that.
And the other reason for a flat roof, obviously, is to get all the equipment up there, the condensers, so, you know, it's not around the property.
That was gonna be my other comment, was that I don't have a huge opinion on, because I wasn't here when they were decided about what the roof, obviously there's aesthetic reasons to prefer some of the roofs that were required, but if we're trying to encourage development, it's a lot more economical to have a flat roof. It also allows for solar panels to be put on, either in the design or in the future.
The gable roofs, you know, they get complicated with fire sprinklers, you know, it's another 12, 15 feet on top of that height. And any thoughts on the look or?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess a question would be, if our current regulations require that gable roof, would this be an opportunity, just while we're here tonight, to be efficient in potentially modifying that requirement? Because otherwise you would have to come in and then ask.
Well, I
Again.
think that we can do simultaneously.
With the special exception.
Yeah, I
At
mean,
that stage.
that's routine. I mean, in fact, we contemplated doing that just because of, to make the process a little bit speedier, and then determined not to do that. But yeah, it's commonplace to amend regulations as well as the special permit at the same time. So, I mean, that'd be a fairly simple, I know that Chris would have to refer back out to the different agencies, but
Yeah, it wasn't part of the referral, so it would need to come in a method as.
Gotcha. So because we referred this set of changes, but not that additional change,
Right,
we
and while you
would, that would
can-
delay this, would have to then go and back out, so
And while you can modify something,
that's too much of
that's
a
a
modification.
stretch to
Okay, I was
modify
just
that.
checking to see the outer
Nice try.
boundaries of a modification.
no, I mean, Chris, I agree with you. It's, I mean, if no one were to challenge it, and I don't think anyone would, it'd probably be okay, but I think caution would dictate that we do it separately.
Understood.
So we would have to go through the whole process, similar to what we're doing here right now for this regulation amendment, just to decide if we could, including inter-regional impacts potentially on changing our regulation to allow for flat roofs versus requiring gable roof?
Yeah, because it's in the zone that that's within 500 feet of other towns. So the times in which regional planning will say that a regulation amendment or a map change amendment actually has an impact on regional planning is like 1 in 1,000,
Right.
but it's required.
Still, it's time. Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
applica-
but again, so we would be submitting both applications. I mean, we could probably get a reg change application in tomorrow so that, you know, we would have both applications heard at the same time. And so you'll be conducting one hearing on 2 applications.
So a hearing on the special permit application
Right.
and that additional change regarding the roof.
Because the application itself, because it would be on this particular piece of property is adjacent to New Haven, has to get referred anyway.
Right.
And they now have asked for a 30-day leeway before the hearing, so just to let you know.
I had an additional question just about, if I'm looking at this, you know, the site, I guess this is the site plan, right? Or it's an approximation thereof of where you'd put it, and the entrance then is fairly close to where the Wilbur Cross overpass is. Am I looking at that correctly, Attorney Nutt? Yeah.
Right, and we've engaged Steve Ullman. I don't know if Steve I think Steve has been here before. So he is investigating that, so he's looking at sight lines and all those things, so that'll be part of his traffic report.
Right, okay. I'm actually just looking at it and thinking about how much rock y'all are gonna have to cut through right there. I know we kind of touched on that briefly when we first talked about this.
Well,
but-
to be honest with you, I thought we were gonna have to take out more, and then he came back to us last week, and the first go-around, he's got 450 feet clear, and thinks we only have to clear about 100 feet of that. And the ledge there is actually pretty easy to handle.
Sure.
So we would just have to get the encroachment permit from the state and pull that back a little bit to have 500 feet. And we're not sure, we may try to get a turn-in lane, at least going south, to get them off that road.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. And just on a side note, a friend of mine just finished a building up behind Home Depot in Derby. You see it up on the hill there. 96 units as well. He leased it in 2 months, just finished. 60% of the people are coming from New Haven. So.
Yeah.
Going by this property, in fact, to get there.
Any additional questions from commission members?
Yeah, I have questions. So thanks, Mr. Neff and Mr. Malisi, for putting together all of this information. We talked about this a few meetings ago, but does it make a difference from your point of view for your project if we were to take a one-off approach versus a wholesale approach to changing the zoning regulations? Can you remind me of the...
Yeah, so we had talked about creating a regulation. In fact, I think we brought one here that night that said on parcels greater than X acres but smaller than Y acres, and I think we had the conversation whether or not that was spot zoning, and I said, well, yeah, we could. And I had no concern about that because it would still satisfy consistency with the comprehensive plan. But I think, as you know, after a thoughtful discussion by everybody, everyone felt that they preferred that we would do this in a way that would affect the Residence A zone in its totality. And then if you wanted to go back and take a broader, more wholesale consideration of the entire opportunity housing regulations, you could do that, but at least you would sort of take care of the Residence A zone.
Thank you.
And which is why we've ended up with these proposed amendments, which are the broad
Correct.
choice. Which is, and I know we've been talking about your particular site, but it's important for us to recognize that this is a change that applies
Agreed.
around the town. Any last questions, comments?
We need to note for the record that you did receive comments back from...
I was just about
Okay.
to ask that and sort of note that. So I wanted to thank our applicants. I do want to then, before we get to our public comment session, Chris, can you remind us what we may have received in terms of written comments?
So were required to send notice to both the Valley Council of Governments and the South Central Regional Council of Governments, and we've received comments back that there's no inter-municipal conflict or adverse impacts, nor impacts on Long Island Sound. From the public, you did receive one written comment from Jim Urbano, which you were all distributed, and that was also supplied to the applicant. So that's what we've received.
And Chris, First Selectman Cardozo did mention that we have our planning analyst. Is it okay for me
You can,
to ask if any members of our planning and zoning commissions have questions for our town's land use consultant?
I'd certainly like to hear if there are any comments that he'd like to, give to us about, his thoughts on this, that he hasn't, if he hasn't already given, I know we had some discussion.
Hello all. No, I think Attorney Nuff basically went over everything.
Just formally introduce yourself for the
absolutely.
record. All this.
Justin LaFountain. I'm the town planning consultant with Goldman & York out of East Hartford. So yeah, Attorney Nuff went through all the details. I think that a couple things that I just wanted to point out. In our work, we've also sort of done the calculations that they have done in terms of trying to figure out if you could fit this type of development with the conditions that are there now. You really can't. There are too many restrictions that don't allow for the density that's allowed. So it's basically an impossible regulation to work with. That being said, I definitely agree that combining this, the roof and the next one would make perfect sense. For 5 years of my career, I was in the Southeastern Council of Governments, and I don't think there was ever one application that we said was going to have an intermunicipal impact. So it rarely ever happens. In general, the last comment was going to be that the sort of doing this as the entire zone, I think makes a lot more sense from a planning perspective. If there were ever any issues, you could resolve them later on, but I think because we have the knowledge that these zoning regulations don't really pan out, it makes sense to just adjust it for everything.
Great. Any questions?
I think the question in my mind is, I think after the first time we heard from Mr. Nuff, maybe the following meeting, we heard from the Department of Housing about incentive housing zones. And because those are based on sort of the baseline regulations in terms of what increased ratio or percentage you need to qualify for those zones, I just wondered whether there was any benefit to leaving, you understand what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually looking at those statutes again today just to kind of refresh my memory on that. And you're right. So it's a 25% increase from the current regulations that needs to kick in. However, based on that incentive zone, it would rarely apply to a town like Woodbridge anyway. You can apply for those sort of the grants that allow you to do a sort of overall survey of the town right now. Beyond that, it likely wouldn't pan out. I think that their numbers were only like 31 towns in the state have gone for it, and they typically tend to be the larger cities. So it really doesn't apply to a smaller town as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My only thought is, I just wonder if it would benefit us instead of going from 15 to 18, go to 15 to 20. That was my thought.
Sure. So the range that we typically see for a development like this, or the look you're trying to get, is between 12 and 20. 20 is on the very high end. There's nothing wrong with that, especially because you have the requirements for the sewer and water and that kind of thing already. So that's sort of up to you. That would be something that you could incorporate into this if you wanted to extend that. For this project, it wouldn't matter. But.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we've heard from our applicant. We have noted for the record the receipt of our reports and comments from the Naugatuck Valley Council, the South Central, Regional Council of Governments. And we had our one written comment from James Urbano, which all of us have in our possession. So unless there's any objection, I think we can now move to the public comment portion of our public hearing. Great. So this public hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. Each of those who wish to come up will have 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record. Our TPZ members and the applicants will not be answering any questions that you may raise. Your public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for the TPZ's consideration of this application. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of this application is prohibited. So please keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed application for the amendment of our opportunity housing bulk regulations, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can hear from all the concerns that you and your neighbors may have. So would anyone like to come forward and give public comment? And I'm getting out my timer, just in case. Anyone like to come forward to make public comment on the proposed changes to our opportunity housing bulk regulations? Third time's a charm. Anyone like to come forward and make public comment? Hearing none. Thank you all. So we need a motion from our commission to close our public hearing on the amendment to our opportunity housing zoning regulations.
So moved.
Moved, and I will second. Who are we seating? I always do that after I should do it. Kathy, would you like to be seated?
Absolutely.
Sure. Then who's official? You don't have to tell. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion on closing our public hearing? Hearing none. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. Our public hearing has been closed, so thank you for the commission for your questions, and I look forward to our deliberations on this during the work session. I want to thank the applicants for their presentation, both today and throughout this entire process, and thank the public for their participation here and through written comments. It is always appreciated. Alrighty. Thank you. So next up we have new business. Is that correct?
Right. This is, I have to bring it back. I'll actually put it in your packets for the next meeting. This is an application by Toll Brothers. Last year, they came back and they are just beginning work on the north side, so this is nothing new from what you had, but because the permit expires, they have to get a new one. So I will get that information out to you, but it needs a public hearing, so we have to schedule it.
Great. And this is just another year?
Just another year. They should be complete with all this work probably by late spring.
Okay. So I think scheduling that public hearing for our next regular
Which would be January 6th.
sounds good. Okay, and then is this one that you have to send? No.
No, because it's not within 500 feet.
Great. It must be close.
No,
No?
no.
Okay. Okay. So that's the extent of our new business. Now we can go to our work session. And we have, as the first item on our work session, if Derek Izawaskowitz is here, to give us a monthly update on the excavation work at 110 Luciani. And unfortunately, I do not see him. Chris, did we get any correspondence?
I have not heard from him.
So if you could please invite him to join us at our January meeting
Okay.
and to explain why he did not attend our December meeting, though specifically requested. Apologies to folks who I see in the back who came for our meeting today. All right. So our next item on our work session is our discussion of the application to amend our zoning regulations regarding our opportunity housing. I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments to table 3.4E-2 for opportunity housing bulk regulations as presented by the applicants.
I make the motion.
Is moved. Do we have a second? Moved and seconded. Now we can engage in our discussion on the motion as presented. So overall, I think it's a good change, and I've appreciated the applicants' interest in working with us through this process. And I think this type of amendment will help us actually achieve some of the goals we originally set forth when we originally passed the opportunity housing regulations a few years ago. Now that we have better understanding of the marketplace, the engineering constraints, the financial constraints. So I think this is all in keeping with both our affordable housing plan and our plan of conservation development on the books. So yeah, I'm in favor. Anyone else with comments, suggestions?
No, it would be similar comments. It's a step in the right direction, and it's what we had been recommending as a housing committee, that we needed to tweak these regulations because we didn't see any type of movement on this. So I think it's great that we are taking this proactive step in making these changes.
Other comments?
I want to associate myself with both those comments and agree, and I'm glad that there's somebody that's helped push that forward, an applicant to help push that forward. So thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm happy to move to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, well, sorry.
We need to adopt an effective date.
I always forget that. Effective,
January 1?
well, how much time do you need?
Oh, January 1 works, right?
Traditionally,
You can't really talk.
Yeah, sorry.
oftentimes it'll be the expiration of the utility.
It's the holiday month. I would appreciate January 1st.
Sure. January 1st, so do I need to amend my motion or no?
No, you're just incorporating.
We're
the
incorporating a January 1st effective date. So we had yeses, any opposed? One opposed, any abstentions? So the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you all. You too. Alrighty. So next on our work session agenda is the, apologies, I just missed
The POCD.
yeah, an update on where our POCD process is going, moving, any next steps for us, Chris?
So you had a deadline of the 27th to get your comments in, and we got 3 comments in. So I forwarded all of those to SLR. I'm going to meet with them later this week. And then I gather from that, they'll determine whether or not they need to come back and have you review the vision statement one more time before it's finalized. So I would just be open to the fact that you're probably going to need another quick special meeting to go over that.
In what time frame?
Sometime December, because we've got to keep this thing moving, because that's what gets us to
Yep.
the next things that happen
December
in
obviously
January.
gets tricky.
Yeah, but it would be a quick thing.
Okay.
And that's about as much as I've got, so thank you to everybody who gave comments in, and go from there.
Great. Next up is our report regarding the Regional Planning Commission of the Southern Connecticut Regional Council of Governments, though Andrew is not here.
Right,
Do you have
but-
an update for us?
Only that he did distribute to you, I believe, what was on the agenda, and so I haven't heard one way or the other, but as has been noted in the hearing prior, it's very rare that anything that's comes before them gets a negative impact.
Great. Kathy, any updates regarding the Housing Committee?
Just that our next meeting will be on Wednesday, and we're continuing to refine our input into the POCD in terms of the housing section, and we will be joined by our planner, so we're hoping to wrap up that exercise and have something by the end of the month.
Terrific. And then, Chris, anything to report in your role as our zoning enforcement officer?
No, I don't think so. Toll is merely moving along. They've already broken ground on the north side. There's 2 sets of foundations in, so it's going and it's selling. And what's interesting is it's selling to people coming up from closer to New York, in part. So
Interesting.
I guess we're affordable for people from New York.
I have a question for Chris.
Sure.
If I may. And I'm not sure if this is applicable to the zoning enforcement officer, but when we do the opportunity housing, there's percentages of units that are supposed to be affordable or not.
That's beyond my pay grade.
Okay, you knew where I was going. So does the town have an enforcement mechanism for that in place?
No. But I
I'm
imagine.
sorry, no?
No, but I'm assuming that as part of their submission to you, they will be demonstrating that they will be compliant with that.
Fair, but, understood.
It is
Yeah.
common.
But it must be an issue, right? No,
Yeah, the
It's-
question is, how do you enforce it? What do you, there's agencies the town could hire to go through the paperwork. It's
sure.
as a nonprofits have whole compliance departments when they have LIHTC housing. It is it's not straightforward
Yeah.
to.
Because what constitutes income on a percentage basis too?
Yeah, I mean, you can use even just, you can use the federal guidelines for tax credit properties, but it's you have to decide how much you're willing to put into paying to have that done. As a town, Guilford was looking at it, it's how they wanted to go about, and for what period, for perpetuity, it's what that compliance mechanism is.
So there's no annual certification or anything regarding this?
We've never done one
No,
before.
I mean, these
And
are
is this similar to, do we care on a 55 and over if the development is not 55 and over according to, does that
Similar
go?
question.
No, that's a very
Good question, yeah, right.
The permit that they are granted is subject to the regulations which provide for how they're supposed to be populated. So they would be in violation of that. Do they submit anything to us to tell us birthdays and all that other good stuff? Absolutely not.
So our planning consultant raised his hand very politely, so feel free to come forward and.
Yeah, so typically, Justin Fountain again, from New York. Typically what I've seen in cases like this is when the applicant comes in with their proposal and their application, you're gonna wanna require a compliance system that they're going to propose to you. What that means is how they're going to meet these targets and what factors are in place to guarantee that they're, complying with those conditions. Usually what I've seen is the town refers it to the town attorney to go over, review, make sure that it's in line, make sure that it can be followed. And typically what I've seen is usually there's an annual affidavit or something that comes up that says we, are noting that we are still in compliance with these conditions. So,
What about on 55 and over housing? Do you
Same
feel-
thing.
Same
Same thing, yep.
So after Toll gets out of after the development's done and sold, there's an HOA, I imagine. And, because I remember asking them about, they spelled out were a couple different methods. They could be, I think, 80%, if my memory is right, 55 and over. I guess it was their decision whether they want to be 80%, 55 and over, 90%, or 100%. But then I think the conversation has died.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if so, unfortunately, I would qualify to live there, but my wife wouldn't. And I was just wondering, wait, what? So if somebody moved in there and it's an HOA, there's no oversight.
So there's two things that come into play with this. There's any town conditions that were put on when it was first approved, and then depending on how their certifications were done through either DOH or federal housing, there may be specific extra considerations. Depending on how they got funding, there are some things that come into play. That's where that 80, 90, 100 comes in. So I'm not too familiar with that project offhand, so I can't tell you exactly how that went out. But with something like this new one coming in, you're going to just want to make sure that you have all that ironed out, so that way everybody knows, how it's going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think can we talk about our meeting schedule?
Yes, so under other business, you
Other
have your
business.
meeting schedule, and then Mika has something else to bring up to you too.
The Board of Selectmen will be having an executive session with the lawyers who are currently working on the Open Communities lawsuit. That'll be on the 11th. It'll be an executive session toward the beginning of the meeting, and wanted to extend an invitation to TPZ as being one of the stakeholders in this, if you'd like to attend, to ask the questions and hear the update. And the reason it's important is if there's enough of your members who wish to attend, we then have to notice the meeting. So we would just need to know ahead of time. It's Wednesday, December 11th, and as I say, our meetings start at 5 o'clock. Generally speaking, we start with the Board of Education, the Woodbridge Board of Education report, which takes 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most, so we expect by 5:15 to get into the executive session. Generally, we try to limit it to about 45 minutes to an hour, specifically because public comment is generally scheduled for 6 o'clock.
So that's Wednesday, December 11th.
Correct,
And you should budget 5 to 6,
correct. Mhm.
basically.
So I'll send an email out to you, and if you can just let me know one way or the other, and then if a notice needs to go out, then I'll send a notice out.
And how quickly you'll need, because once we hit a quorum, we're then an
Right.
official meeting.
So I would want to know by the end of this week.
That would give you plenty of time.
Mika, does town council have an opinion as to, do they think it's important we should go, or then do they issue such an opinion, or are they recommending it?
They
Or
did
do
not
you-
offer any input along those lines. This is something that I'm suggesting and
Okay.
feel that is
Will there be
important.
food and drink served?
At our meetings, not.
You have my
So-
answer then.
Okay, Mika.
So again, it's just more, we're gonna have one rather than having them come multiple times to multiple sessions. We're looking to just combine it.
Okay.
Okay. So, Chris, you'll send out an
I'll send an
email
email out, yep,
polling us
and just let me know.
on our availability. Is that the only item?
That's the only,
Any update on, didn't last month, there was it all blurs together a little bit, an application for a grant?
That was for the 1875 Litchfield Turnpike.
yes, that continues to progress. The state has first right of refusal on that property. And so we actually have a call with the state scheduled for this week, at which point in time we'll see what their interest is and see if there's any potential for for them to buy it, which there seems to not be extensive interest in, or some limitation, or some reluctance in terms of some of what's going on with them, and to see if we can partner and do something else. But basically, we're gonna assess where we stand with that and what we can do. And until such time as we identify how we can go about it, after which we'll get into whether or not what we need from TPC.
Great, thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Meeting schedule, so Chris has handed out to us our schedule for the next year. Do we need to formally approve this?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so I'll make a motion to approve the meeting schedule for January 2025 through January 26.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Paul, any of these seem to intersect with any Jewish holidays.
I thought you were gonna ask if food and drink's gonna be served.
No. I'm looking to you as my,
I'm looking at me as a guy puts in his calendar because there's nothing better to do. Let's see. September 2nd, October 6th. Nope. All good.
all good? Right. Any other dates that people are looking at? Hearing none, all in favor of the proposed meeting schedule for January 2025 through January of 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. Passes. Alrighty, motion to adjourn.
No, minutes. Oh,
Sorry.
Unless you want to hold them over until January.
No, let's do it. We have two sets of minutes in front of us. The regular meeting of November 4th, 2024, and a special meeting of November 19th, 2024. I move for the approval of both sets of minutes. Have a second? Moved and seconded. Any comments, edits to the minutes? They all look good to me.
I don't think I got a copy of the minutes.
I
They
emailed
were
them.
emailed.
Yeah, I got them in email. Oh, you didn't have them. Okay, that's fine.
I have hard copies if you want them.
Okay, no.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of both November 4th and November 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Paul will abstain. Alrighty, now motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all.